All right, this particular bug is relatively minor, although I did see it happen once. A user was using the advanced search page and used the date picker to choose some dates. And in this case, the user had been trying a few things, and what happened was the user noticed that the first date had become 1903, and so manually changed this to be 2003, but didn't follow on and change the other. Now, in this case, summon does give this error message. It's very subtle. It's in the same color and font as everything else on the page. The user did not notice this before they submitted the form or attempted to submit the form. I didn't notice it until I was watching the replay of the screencast of that session. But Summon does give this little error message that says the date range is basically incorrect because they're out of sequence. We've got 2003 to 1903, so our after date is earlier than our from date. So that's all fine. It would be helpful if someone had made this a little more prominent. The user goes to search and they click on the search button, which doesn't work. So the search button has been deactivated by this improper date. So the form is validating, it knows it's improper, won't let you submit. It would be helpful if this, again, was a little more prominent, maybe in red, maybe down here by the search button. But whatever happened, essentially the user was able to click into a field and use the enter key to submit that search with the invalid date range. So even though there was some validation in place that was preventing the user from clicking on the search button, you'll notice that this invalid date range can still be submitted to Summon if a user presses the enter key. And this particular user was frustrated. They basically they clicked 6 or 7 times on search. They thought something was wrong, and then they started clicking on other things, noticing that the form was still being responsive, which is when they came across the idea of, oh, I'll just submit using enter. This particular user went through this a couple times, never realized that there was an invalid date range, eventually did clear their filters using this link, and were able to get back. But you can see that there's no indication that there's a publication date being applied to this search at all. So the normal graph showing the publication date range doesn't appear in this case. So there's really no visual way to understand what's going on unless you look up here in the URL, and our user did not do that. So it's a very subtle thing, but the advanced search form, if there is an issue like this that should prevent the search form from being submitted, that hitting enter to submit the form should also be rendered inoperable so that a user doesn't get stuck in a situation where they're submitting a search that can never possibly return any results, because many users, of the 11 users that I tested, only 2 or 3 actually ever used the clear your filters button, and this only appears if there are no results returned.